Showing a quick video. I hope it's quick. It looks like it's going to be rather tedious because now I've started again. These are called tatting needles, and they are, seems like I've got one right here. Okay. They are another method that you can use to tat. This one doesn't count because it's not a tatting needle. A tatting needle is about 5 inches long and has an end on it that is not sharp. To tat with a needle, all you need is thread. This is size 10 of mercerized cotton, and the brand I happen to use is DMC. I happen to like their brand quite a bit. And Traditions, and again, this is a size 10 thread. There's the size right there, and size 10. I ordered it from the company because it's hard for me to find it where I am locally. Basically, all tatting is knotting. It's using thread knotted in such a way that it makes a design of lace similar to that. That's tatting. Let me get the old and the new apart now, since I've pulled them now together. Sorry about that. Get that one out of the way. You can get tatting needles. I've seen them at Hobby Lobby, not so much Michael's. I've not seen them, hardly ever have I seen anything for tatting at Walmart. But I know Amazon has it, so I'll put a link to the Amazon URL where this book, it's a step-by-step guide by Barbara Foster, and the publisher is Handy Hands Tatting. Also, the needles are Handy Hands Tatting, and you can get the book and the needles together. I'll look that up and have that below so that you can see that. You'll get either 1 or 3 needles is what I've seen in their selections before. One very cold day on Valentine's Day a number of years ago, I was bored because I got stuck at home. Not that that's bad, but I was bored and I wanted to learn how to tat really bad, but I did not have a tatting needle, the 5-inch long ones that are not pointy. What I did have was a pointed tapestry needle, and yet I was determined, and I had an old spool of thick thread, and so I picked it up and I went by the directions on the internet and found it to be very easy. I was off and running, and that was February 14th. By that September, I had made a very large doily and entered it into my local fair and won a blue ribbon with it. So if I can do it, believe me, anybody can do it. To thread the end of the needle, here's a quick tip. Hold your thread between your fingers this way. Bring the eye of the needle up through the middle of that. Holding tightly, let it go between your thumb and your first finger, your pointer finger. I will always call it my first finger because I play the violin and that's my first finger. Holding it tightly, let a little bit of it come up in between, and you can put the eye of the needle right over that thread as it's coming up right there and thread your needle. In most cases, very quickly. If you're trying to do a video, it won't work. So let me do it again and not think about it, and it'll thread. I hope. Okay. I do that with all my needles and thread, whatever size they are. And generally, it works pretty good. You have to squeeze that pretty tight. I'm going to be pulling this thread and giving myself about 18 inches of a tail, and then I'm going to keep pulling and give myself a few more inches to work with. That's just loose in between the end of the needle and my left hand. So add another 12 inches maybe there. I'm going to start, I'm going to move my thread to my left because I work with my right hand and I want my thread to come from the left. And to do the first stitch, I'm going to open the book, so I'm using the same terminology this book is using. I call this, when you knit, you cast on to your knitting needle. This is really quite similar. This in the book is referred to as the double stitch, and so that's what I'm going to show you is the double stitch. And making sure I'm in camera, and I can't tell if it's focused. There it goes. Okay. I'm going to hold the thread to the bottom of the middle of the needle with my first finger on my right hand and just hold it there. And my first stitch is going to be cast on by pulling that thread around my finger and wiping it off, basically, by putting the needle to the left of the thread, going through and pulling it onto the needle like this. Now I'm going to put my finger and hold the knot that I just made, and I'm going to complete it. Now I'm going to make a loop around my thumb and come up behind, I'm trying to see it on camera here, behind the thread on the bottom of my thumb and pull it this way so that I have this stitch on the needle. Now I'm going to do it again a little faster. Loop it around left to right on the first finger, and I'm going to pull it and cinch it up to the first stitch I've made, and then around my thumb to the back, off and onto the needle. So now I have 2 of those stitches. And as you get going and learn, it's a pattern. As you keep going and practicing that, you'll be making the double stitch for tatting with a needle. You do not have to do the stitch the exact same way I'm showing you. The method with my left hand, for example, you can change it to make it more comfortable for you. This is just my quick method of doing it. And so now I have cast on. I'm going to get as close as I can and show you if it will come into focus. I cannot tell if it is or not. I hope it is. Now I have cast on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. 8 double stitches. Okay. If at this point I pull all those stitches to the eye of the needle, and I'm pushing the needle through now to where we left this tail of thread. If I push those all the way through and then off my end, I now have all of those double chains on this tail of thread. Do you see what I mean? That thread that we left out there for the tail is going to be the center now. Instead of the needle, the thread is going to be the middle of all of those stitches. And what we're doing is building stitches, the double stitch, onto thread. And just utilizing the use of this tool called a needle to do so. when you pull your thread all the way through, you can see that loop closing in on the end right there. Keep pulling. I'm going to keep pulling that tail thread all the way through. And now I have a little bit of tatting right there. It's all by itself. There is no needle inside of it anymore. There's a loop at the end, though. That loop at the end, remember when I had it pulled out? And I should have showed you that right away. But that loop at the end, if I were to, in fact, I may just do that. I'm going to cut that off and I'm going to show you again. And this way, I can just use a shorter thread. Okay, here's the piece that is the tail to my right and my thread to my left. I'm going to do the stitching again, and this time there's 1 double stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me add a step. Right here I'm going to add a picot. P-I-C-O-T. All it is are these little loops. Like right here. The little loops that give it a dainty design. They also are little hooks so that you can attach your loops and your chains together. So let me show you that. Very easy to do this. Put your finger on your needle in the spot in between this double stitch. Do another double stitch, but let your finger keep that double stitch away from the end of the previous one. And then when you let go and you push those two together, you have a picot. I'm going to do a few more stitches in here, and then I'm going to do another picot. I'm going to put my finger in front of my finished stitches, and I'm going to do it again. I'll throw a few on there and then pull it together. I like to give it a tug, and from doing it so often I can generally get about the same size picot. That's a tiny one. Let's do a big one. This time I'm going to put more of my finger down and keep it further away. And this time I'm going to do a long picot. Put a few stitches on there to hold it. And here's a longer one. Now I'm going to do another short one. Maybe not quite that short. How about right there? There's another shorter one. And as you practice, you're going to know what it feels like to do it. And yes, there are tools out there that will help you with that and get them straight. So what I'm going to do, there's the second one. And I did not do these two very evenly, did I? Let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the end. So I'm going to finish this one off with 6. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, that's real pretty sitting on that needle, isn't it? We'll pretend they're even, although I know they're not. Here's the next thing I'm going to show you. I showed you the chain. Now I'm going to show you by putting my needle, I didn't give myself much thread, did I? By putting my needle through the loop at the end. Sorry, my little tail got too short too. I wonder if I need to pull it out. Which way did you go? We're going to pretend that this didn't happen just now. I cannot tell. I think what I did was I caught that because that tail was too short. There. Okay, we're going to pretend that didn't happen. Usually the tail stays a little bit longer. Here's the loop that I'm pulling through. I want to go up from the bottom and pull everything right through that loop, including the tail, the thread that has the tail on it. One or the other of those is it. This has to be it. There it goes. And now I have a ring. Sorry, I did not do that so well, but I hope you get the idea. There's a ring. And now, if I wanted to, I can go on. I have completed a line now of directions, for example. And I'm going to do the next step in the directions. Since I have closed a ring by pulling it through the loop, I'm going to turn the piece over from right over left, and it curves these two threads, it twists them. I'm going to go up from the bottom in between that, and I'm going to make a knot just one time, keeping my tail thread to the right and my roll of thread to the left. Now I'm going to continue. I lay my needle directly across that knot, like we did at the beginning where I held my finger with the thread underneath the needle. Pretend you're doing the same thing there, just over that knot you just made, while you start the next one. This one I want to touch all the way up to that knot. And I'm just going to cast on, say, 6 double stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I'm going to pull this eye of the needle straight through, and this time I am not going to come up from the bottom through that loop. I am going to pull it all the way straight. And now what I've done is I've made the chain. So a ring and a chain. And now I'm going to flip it over one time halfway. Bring the needle up through the twisted threads and pull. And make it firm, because you don't want it to have a loose thread in there. Now I have a ring and a chain, and I can do the next step, whatever the directions are. I'm making one up real quick just for an example. I'm going to just do 2 chains because, as you can see, I'm running out of thread right here. And for fun, I'm just going to bring it up, and I'm going to catch a picot, this little one right here. And I'm going to join what I'm working on my needle with what I've already done, and I'm going to catch this little picot by putting my needle through the picot. If you've knitted, you'll know what this is. Pull the thread around from the back side to the front of the needle, and pulling tightly with your left hand, pull that thread through the picot until it makes a little loop right there. And then you can continue on. Some people count that as part of the double stitch, some do not. I personally do not count it. I count it as a picot only to keep my thread counts correct. So I'm going to do 2 more chains, and In a perfect world, it really probably would have been attached with another ring. But I'm going to do it just to show you real quick what it does. It attaches because everything under here is going to go through whatever you did on the outside of your stitch using the needle. That's not a very excellent example, but it does give you the idea. Then I'm going to turn the piece halfway over. Where those two threads cross, I'm going to pull and tie that down.